Amalgam is overpowered, but it is also very fun. So let's talk about it. I will give you my take on Amalgam. Please let me know yours in the comments down below. As always, special shout out to all my dear supporters that help me keep the lights on. And now, without much further ado, let's jump straight in and talk about Amalgam. In my opinion, one of the most flexible specs ever existed. This is of course my opinion on the elite specs after testing it in the beta event. If you want to see all my other elite specs that I tested in the beta event, which is obviously all of them, be sure to check out the playlist linked in the description down below. Now let's start and talk a bit about Amalgam and its profession mechanic. I personally think the profession mechanic is one of the most interesting ones. I know a lot of people think it is quite flexible and currently overpowered. For sure, that's the case. And some people don't like how it feels, that it's not that different. I personally think it is very flexible, and for me as a build crafter, that's enough to make a spec very interesting. And that it is currently overpowered, I will somewhat ignore this, because this is something that can easily be fixed by tuning numbers. And I don't think the spec would be completely unfun to play if you had balanced numbers. I don't think so, really. I think it has really good potential to cook up some crazy builds, to have really interesting gameplay, even if the numbers are not absolutely broken. Yes, some of the mechanics like completely destroying one's barrier in PvE and some encounters completely destroys the encounter design, sure, but I just think the attacks look fun, it feels very fluid, it has really cool trade interactions. I think it's actually in a very good spot and might be one of the best elite specs released with this expansion. At least in my opinion, yeah, that's just my take. So with that much said, let's start a little bit and talk about the utility skills and the Amalgam morph skills, how they interact with each other, because they're really interchangeable, really flexible. You have a very wide range of good skills. I think the offensive ones are probably the strongest ones in PvE, but the defensive ones shine like insanely in competitive modes. It's crazy. I will showcase later here a video of me playing Amalgam in PvP, and I'm playing like full offensive and using defensive morph skills, and it works perfectly. It's crazy. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll start now with some kind of PvE analysis and go later to the PvP and World vs. World analysis. If you only want to see those, be sure to use the timestamps in the description. But now let's talk about the evolve skill and how this interacts with the traits, because I think that's really fun. That you can change your F5 skill very drastically how it functions, depending on how you choose your traits. And that's really cool. I think that's a really cool design. It's similar to Troubadour, but in my opinion, a little bit better executed, because you definitely see how you make your decision and how this changes your build drastically. So you either want to use your F5 skill to get the morph, so to say, second effect, or if you have a different trait, you would use the morph skills to get the morph skill second effects directly and use the F5 just for some kind of passive stat gain and stuff like that. So I think it's really interesting how you can make that work. And of course you have the second time that you can use it with a specific trait. I think that's really fun. And I also think that the utility skills are actually one of the best designed ones. Not necessarily how they look. I think they look decent, don't get me wrong. I think they are okay. Especially the elite looks actually quite fun to me. But how the mechanic of each skill fits into multiple situations is crazy to me. Like, there is really aggressive things baked in, and it works for Condi, for power. It sometimes even works for support build. So, and it's very flexible and the defensive skill at the same time. So it's definitely, I think, just mechanically how it works, it's extremely well designed, the utility skills in my opinion. And it makes a lot of sense with some traits interactions as well to use them. And it's just really, really strong. It is fun to theory craft with it. I think it's one of the specs you can make crazy amounts of builds with it. And I think Amalgam is really strong because of that. Just having the option to play 5, 6, 7 different builds that all make sense and all work, it's crazy good. So now let's talk a little bit about the numbers in PvE specifically. Yes, the numbers are really high, but you can clearly see that Amalgam works as a Condi DPS with reaching 53k DPS currently, with having a little bit of a bad burst, but definitely playable. 53k will probably be tuned down quite a bit. And then you have the power DPS that is really strong, like 54k DPS as far as I know, and has, if you play it correctly, has insane burst. Like, you can destroy the 1 million golem in the golem room with a end number of 62k. So the burst is really high if you play it correct. And yes, I get this criticism that people say it feels like a power scrapper without the barrier. Yeah, it feels like it, to be honest. Power Amalgam feels very similar to Power Scrapper. But to be honest, I think a lot of engineer specs that play Power play very similar since the hammer was released. That's just a fact. I would personally say it's in general, it's not a big deal because you have 5 different builds on Amalgam that play differently, in my opinion, to Scrapper. So I think someone that likes Power Amalgam probably also likes Power Scrapper, and that's a fine line where you can say, okay, sometimes you want to have the Power Scrapper because you have crazy barrier uptime, you have very nice defenses, and your overall DPS is good. And then you have the Amalgam that might have a bigger burst, but has no defensive in the tool, so to say, because you take everything to be aggressive and don't have any barrier. I think that there is a world where you have both of them working together. And I think that's good. I think that's completely fine. That's how it should be. Of course, the numbers are too high, but that's okay. We can tune them down. Numbers are not something that is bad to change. And I think that we also have some really interesting potential with the alacrity and quickness providing. I think they have to take a look at this again, because this is, what can I say? If you run 8 amalgams and you could permanently upkeep all, for example, in a squad, all the boons with reducing alacrity and quickness on all of them and having just DPS builds, that's weird. That should not be the case in my opinion if they really want to balance it like that. I personally like theory crafting like that, but I think Arena does not. I saw a video about the Kodan Ice Blue Saga Strike mission getting almost one shot in 10 seconds by 8 amalgams and 2 power scrappers because they are so strong right now. So yeah, I think they need to fix a little bit of the how amalgam functions as in terms of like boon providing and getting crazy DPS numbers. But in general, I really like this spec, and I had a lot of fun also crafting some kind of solo build in PvE. It's really easy to come up with something that works very well there because you have so much like nice utility that you can swap with the morph skills. Then you provide a lot of damage on your utility skills, and you have of course your aggressive weapon, and you can use some traits depending if you want to be defensive or offensive, and it works very well. It's very cool how flexible you can be, especially the one trait that gives like poison on each attack of your amalgam skills with no internal cooldown. Oh boy, this is really strong, not only in PvE but also in competitive modes. So I think it's like some of the traits really are top notch, and they probably have to take a look at and say, okay, maybe we give this an ICD to make it not completely busted. But in general, it looks really fun. I like it a lot. Really strong spec in PvE. Had a lot of fun trying out new builds and stuff. When it comes to competitive modes, I think it's like the build crafting element in PvP. I tried to craft a new build and make some interesting things happen. But I have to be honest, it is a little bit harder to come up with multiple builds that work. Because the thing is, you really want to be aggressive, otherwise you are not doing that much. I really wanted to try some Bruiser Amalgam. I could not really make it work. It was more like I played always very aggressive traits, and I took very defensive morph skills, and it worked perfectly fine. So I'm not sure if that's like the way to do it, or if I would say I'm just overlooking something that is a Bruiser is very flexible and very easily doable. But I think Amalgam is really fun and really strong to use in PvP, especially if you run some kind of annoying like Condi stuff. But I think it's really strong, and I saw some crazy numbers in World vs. World as a DPS and Zergs. It's absolutely busted there, and I think for roaming it's obviously also really strong. I think overall in competitive modes it looks like a very DPS focused spec that is probably not even close to getting played as a support, but I think you can make a Bruiser work. Might not be the best option, but Amalgam looking very strong as some kind of aggressive Bruiser, maybe aggressive DPS spec. I think it's looking quite good, and I like it a lot. It makes a lot of sense to play it like that. I hope it stays like that it's good, not overpowered, but good, so that engineer mains finally has something to play in PvP that is actually really like solid in the meta pick, not something that is like good in some situations and really bad in others. So like I said, be sure to check out my playlist in the description down below if you want to see all my other takes on the other elite specs in the current beta. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content like this. Let me know your takes in the comments down below. Thanks again to all my supporters, and I hope to see you all in the next video.